We have multiple major Jonathan Kuminga updates to discuss as the entire NBA has their eyes on the Warriors' rising star entering this year's free agencies. Of course, he's had his up and down history with Steve Kerr, sometimes struggling to stay in the rotation, but after his explosive second round of this year's playoffs, all eyes are on his impending free agency and what options the Warriors have in regards to this upcoming summer. So we're going to break down the multiple reports that have come out regarding Jonathan Kuminga, what Warriors fans can expect in regards to his impending free agency, and frankly, the tough decisions that have to be made for this team and how the Warriors are positioning themselves to make it. So a lot of stuff to break down out here in this video. I'm Ben Rogers, jumping back on Warriors Digest. I've been behind the scenes a ton as this channel's grown. I've been on camera a little bit as well during this year's trade deadline, helping deliver you guys the latest Warriors news. And first thing I want to say, appreciate everyone getting us to 12,000 subscribers out here on the channel. Appreciate every single one of you, and make sure you guys hit that sub button because we aren't slowing down with NBA free agency, the draft, all of that around the corner. So make sure you guys hit that sub button and join the community that Randy, Arthur, and the entire team here at Warriors Digest to deliver you the latest Golden State Warriors news. But let's dive into it because we have so much to discuss regarding these Jonathan Kuminga updates, as frankly all eyes are on him right now, and we have a pretty interesting update as Anthony Slater came out and said that Jonathan Kuminga, league sources have said, hasn't slammed the door shut on a return to the Golden State Warriors. Restricted free agency doesn't really allow that. The Warriors have ultimate control regardless of his desire, but his comfort about the idea is dependent on several factors, and there's a month of conversation and eventual negotiations ahead with competing agendas in the mix. So this is a very, very interesting update for, Jonathan Kuminga coming into this offseason because, of course, there have been moments over the course of this season where it looked like a surefire thing, given Steve Kerr's rotation patterns, that Jonathan Kuminga would not be back with the Golden State Warriors, no matter how much potential Warriors fans feel he has to rise, because even in a weird season, the up and down with minutes and stuff, he still had a very solid year. 15 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 2.2 assists, shooting 30%. The three-point shot wasn't that effective, but the guy is just 22 years old. And the thing that has Warriors fans just really amped up, really excited, is the flashes he shows on any given night, and none more bigger than what he did in the second round of this year's postseason. You can see in the first round against Houston, that 7-game series, Jonathan Kuminga didn't even play most of the games in that series, and when he did, it was some, limited run, not the most consistent minutes. 26 minutes the first game he had, 16, and then 7 in his final game against the Houston Rockets. And again, those stats weren't great, but not a lot of run out there for the Golden State Warriors. However, against the Minnesota Timberwolves, you can see his stats. You can see what he was able to do out there on the court. And yes, most of those big games ended up coming in losses, but he was really the engine. He was really the guy that put in some buckets out there for this Golden State Warriors team, scoring 18 points, 30 points, 23 points, 26 points in those games against the Minnesota Timberwolves where he got some extended runs. So these are all things that have Warriors fans just confused in terms of the future regarding Jonathan Kuminga, and the fact that he has been benched, the fact that he, at such a young age, seasons pass, games pass, months pass. He's talked about how, hey, he doesn't want to come back. There's rumors of this leak coming out here. All of these different things that have happened over the course of Jonathan Kuminga's career with the Golden State Warriors, he still has that extremely high upside. And while there are some people that are saying, hey, let's just move on. We know Kerr's not going to keep him in the rotation. He's not going to be worth all that money. There are a huge portion of the fan base that see the potential in Jonathan Kuminga and don't want to let him walk for nothing. So that's where things get very, very interesting regarding this whole Jonathan Kuminga situation. As despite all of this, the DNPs and everything that's going on, he is still not slammed the door shut on a return to the Golden State Warriors. Of course, it's tough for him to do that in restricted free agency, as that has been the case. But there are some options for him to still, the Warriors to get assets back, for him to also be on his way out. So Anthony Slater also came out and said that could open up several avenues and possible suitors for Kuminga. This is the first report, the multiple reports here. There's not a current expectation that Brooklyn Nets are preparing to offer an offer sheet for Jonathan Kuminga, but there are signs Brooklyn could be willing to use its open cap space as a vehicle to execute a multi-team trade scenarios this summer, sources have said. So basically, that could open up several avenues and possible suitors for Kuminga, one of the market's most intriguing names. If the Warriors front office, with the help help of new cap specialist John Phelps, showed some creativity last summer, routing Thompson's departure into a 6-team sign-and-trade that delivered Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson after generating the space for D'Anthony Melton. These deals could go down. And this is where things get very, very interesting in regards to a sign-and-trade for Jonathan Kuminga. Because, again, while he's a piece that a lot of Warrior fans want to have back, it's an interesting spot that the Warriors are in. Because there's a lot of cap things that you have to look at in regards to an actual Jonathan Kuminga trade. Because currently his max salary is $38 million per year, which, again, for a guy that wasn't in the rotation a ton, does have the potential to be great, but wasn't in the rotation a ton, that's a ton of money to add to your roster, where the Warriors do have a lot of money out there up front. That is his kind of his max salary going into next year. In a trade, his new salary counts as 50% of the outgoing money. So the salary matching rules apply on top of that. So they have to send out the $29 million to take back team. So salary matching rules apply on top of that. So send out $29 million to take in $36 million, and he can be aggregated with other salaries. So basically what this means is the Golden State Warriors, they're making one of these moves. They're making one of these trades. Essentially, 50% of that salary is only going to be talked about or going to be matched as outgoing money. So in order to stay under that cap, they have to get really crafty in terms of making one of these deals go down. So that can get very, very difficult. Now, you see the Nets not willing to offer sheet him, and there's some rumblings about that being the case. They're interested in Kuminga in the past. There has been some buzz about Cam Johnson getting dealt and one of these trade packages going down, as there's a sentiment around the league. The Nets could land a second lottery pick by consolidating and packaging some combination of Johnson and those picks at the end of the first round or future draft capital. Now, of course, the Warriors, they're not going to have the lottery pick, but they do have some options in terms of making some of those moves for a Cam Johnson package. And this is one of the stuff that's been thrown out by GSW Ball Report out there on Twitter, saying that Jonathan Kuminga and Santos, a 27 first-round pick and 3 second-rounders for Cam Johnson as a package to at least discuss, to hypothesize, in terms of these trade packages for Jonathan Kuminga. Now, Cam Johnson would be a very cool return out there just in a vacuum for your team, right? He's a guy averaging 19 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, 3.4 assists. He's 29 years old. He's a savvy veteran. He's shooting 45% on corner threes. A much better shooter than Jonathan Kuminga, but plays a similar position. He does play some defense and stuff. He would be a cool guy to get back rather than giving up Kuminga for nothing. And, of course, Warriors fans want to capitalize on these final years of Steph Curry. We've seen, despite the aging, of all these stars across the league, Steph Curry has remained, when he has the talent around him, when he has the right pieces out there on his team, it's tough to ask him night in, night out to be at 1A every single possession, where the defenses are fully locked in on him, and, for an 82-game season to expect that, and that can lead to injuries, as we saw in this year's playoffs, all of those types of things. It's tough to expect that on Steph Curry night in, night out. But if you have the right team around him, if you take the load off of Steph Curry, then frankly, he still is Steph Curry. He could still be the best player in the league on any given night, take over games, playing out there with LeBron James, KD out there, Team USA. He's the one getting double teamed. He's still Steph Curry. So if you bring in some guys that can take off the load that for the course of the entire season, then that's going to help this team a ton. Not just, make it through to the playoffs, but having Steph Curry feel more fresh than he was over the course of the season. So basically, bringing in Cam Johnson definitely makes sense. However, there are a lot of people arguing that Jonathan Kuminga just makes sense as one of those guys to be that piece to move forward with on the roster long term. Now, if Kuminga's open to that and things work out, Steve Kerr is willing to actually play him and give him the consistent minutes, and that's something that could work out. And frankly, I wouldn't be shocked if that's the avenue the Warriors do end up going down rather than the Cam Johnson pursuit, or one of these other players, because Joe Lacob absolutely loves Jonathan Kuminga. Said, a quote from him, "I was listening to guys behind me tonight give running commentary, and Kuminga's the guy that they talked about all night long. He's the only guy that could really guard Anthony Edwards out there. Did a pretty good job at doing it. He had a tough situation with the DNPs from the last series, and to bounce back from that, I give him a lot of credit. I'm a big fan of his." So, that's high praise from a big decision maker out there at the Golden State Warriors. So Kuminga is liked by ownership. Steve Kerr, there's still question marks about in terms of the future there. Kerr has obviously said some very positive things about Jonathan Kuminga, but the actions in terms of rotations and stuff are the things that you could really look at in terms of him wanting to stay, him wanting to return. But he is open to coming back. That's the big thing we can take away from these reports. Of course, there are different teams that are going to be in the mix that are trying to make things happen for a guy that has the upside, that has the potential of a Jonathan Kuminga, but we'll see how things shake out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below if you want to see Jonathan Kuminga back on the Golden State Warriors. Anyways, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing going on with this Warriors team. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.